Ladies and gentlemen, and you are most warmly welcome to this Nordic Climate Meetings press conference. We start with Minister Kimmo Tiilikainen introducing the final declaration of the meeting. Minister Tiilikainen, please.
Good afternoon, Prime Ministers, dear colleagues. I'm very glad that we could arrange this meeting here in Helsinki today. IPCC 1.5 report released in October told about the black future we will have if we are not able to do more and faster emission reductions that was planned before. Our citizens in all Nordic countries asked, what are our governments doing? Today, Nordic countries' governments are answering what we are going to do. We are standing up and combining our efforts to tackle the climate change. Why Nordic countries? Because we can. We have shown that we can grow our economies and improve the welfare of our citizens at the same time when we are reducing emissions remarkably. We have scalable solutions and technologies that are desperately needed in countries whose emissions are still rising. We have history of cooperation between ourselves, but also in very many international forums. Together we are, for example, superpowers of development policies. Today we have accepted declaration on Nordic carbon neutrality. It's delivered to you, so I'm not going to represent line by line, but I'm raising some issues that were the most important or mostly discussed during our discussions. We are all ready to improve our NDCs under Paris Agreement, so we are going to do more than we have promised earlier. We are also committed in all international connections to encourage other parties to do the same, raising ambition. And a good point to do that will be the United Nations Secretary General's Climate Summit in next September. We are working together so that Nordic countries have something to present there together. The process continues so that on March, the Ministerial Council of Ministers for Environment will continue working with the issues that are shown in the declaration, and we guess that we start with the comparable study of measures, how each of us is going to reach the carbon neutrality we all are aiming at. Today we discussed, for example, promoting carbon pricing, how we can strengthen emission trade so that CO2 emissions will cost more and that will guide industries and energy production to clean solutions. We discussed how we can speed up our efforts to reduce emissions in transportation and agriculture, for example. And then we discussed about the need, how we can improve and strengthen biological sinks and technological sinks, carbon capture and storage and usage, because IPCC 1.5 report tells that it's not anymore only reducing emissions, it's also how to remove CO2 effectively from the atmosphere so that we can maintain and keep our target alive. I would like to thank all the ministers and colleagues for very efficient and productive work during the last couple of weeks to finalize the joint Nordic declaration we have decided on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister Tiilikainen. And now I have the honor to ask the ministers to come and sign the declaration here at the front. Prime Minister, would you kindly start? And next would be Prime Minister of Iceland. Thank you. And then Prime Minister of Norway, please. Then we have Deputy Prime Minister from Sweden. And Minister on Climate Issues from Denmark. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now the ministers have promised to give their short remarks on today's meeting. And Prime Minister Sipilä, could you kindly start?
Thank you, dear colleagues. It's nice to have you here on such a short notice. We highly appreciate your flexibility. I would especially like to thank the Presidency of the Nordic Council, Iceland, for your support on that work. This is also a good sign of Nordic cooperation and shows how critical issue we consider the climate change to be. It's one of the greatest challenges facing us, and we need to combat it through the ambitious climate actions. Global emissions levels began to increase again last year. We don't have many years left to reserve the trend in global emissions levels permanently. We have to be faster, we have to do more. This meeting shows to me that the seriousness of this challenge can also unite us. Last December, 8 parties in Finland came together and agreed on national climate policy goals. We agreed, among other things, in the 2040s, Finland will reach the situation where our greenhouse gas emissions are clearly negative. We also agreed to prepare comprehensive carbon sink policy for the land use sector. Finland will also promote low carbon and emission-free transport. We also agreed the importance of research, development and innovation funding for mitigation of climate change. We will speed up the export value of our climate solutions. We will also promote circular economy and sustainable consumption and production by developing climate footprint calculations and for the life cycles of products and related product labeling. And we concluded that solutions related to taxation must be socially sustainable. Today's Nordic Declaration also includes many of these elements. Today we had great presentations from experts on importance of carbon sinks and forest and how to turn CO2 into stones, carbon capture, storage, and how to use it as an important source of other new products. I truly believe that we, the Nordic countries, have scalable Nordic low-carbon solutions to suit the global demand. We had a great discussion with my colleagues, and many good ideas came up during our unofficial discussions. For example, the idea of starting discussion on how to provide incentives to increase carbon sinks. We also will assess in 2020 different scenarios on how we Nordic countries could achieve carbon neutrality. I'm sure that under the leadership of Icelandic presidency, we will come back to these topics later this year. Let me just underline that this meeting sent a strong message that we Nordic countries have the political will and technical solutions to take the lead combating climate change. It's time for the Nordic leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next I would like to give the word to Denmark, please.
Nu da vi er til et nordisk møde, så vil jeg tillade mig at tale på dansk. Først og fremmest tak for indbydelsen. Tak til den finske premierminister for at have taget initiativ til det her møde og til at besøge jeres dejlige land og by. Jeg ser særligt 2 områder, hvor der er oplagt, at vi samarbejder. Først og fremmest i forhold til det fælles mål om at være klimaneutrale. Der har vi rigtig gode erfaringer, og vi kan samarbejde om det, udveksle synspunkter og gode idéer på tværs af landene. Så er det også vigtigt, at vi gør en fælles indsats i forhold til at holde klimadagsordenen på den globale dagsorden. Der står de nordiske lande meget, meget stærkt. Den position er det vigtigt, at vi fastholder. Og så har jeg på mødet i dag også nævnt den ambition, som vi jo har om at udfase benzin- og dieselbiler. At vi også her samarbejder tæt med hinanden. At vi gør, hvad vi kan for også at holde det på EU's dagsorden. Presse på for, at det ikke bare bliver en nordisk, men at det bliver en EU-dagsorden. Tak for ordet, og tak for et rigtig godt møde.
Thank you very much. And then Iceland would be the next one.
Thank you, and thank you, Juha, for organizing this meeting. Thank you to Finland, and it shows that we can actually react quickly, and you could say that this meeting was a follow-up of the Katowice meeting, and I think it underlines really that all the Nordic countries are prioritizing climate change, and in my personal view, it is the biggest challenge of our times. The Icelandic government has presented a new national plan to fight climate change, which is a combination of reducing emissions and binding more carbon, capturing more carbon from the atmosphere. And the goals are to decrease carbon emission in Iceland by 40% by the year 2030 and become carbon neutral by the year 2040. And I think we can actually all learn a lot from each other because we all have our plans heading for carbon neutrality. We're using different methods. And this meeting today, I think, was very useful, not least because research and innovation are going to be key players how we can do it faster and more quickly. And it also showed us that political policies matter in this fighting this big challenge. Now, it is my view that the Nordic countries should cooperate more on climate change. I think the fight against climate change should be an overarching goal in all our policy making, because if it's something that we have learned in Iceland, is that we will not get results without having intersectional cooperation and international cooperation. The Minister for the Environment is responsible for the fight against climate change, but we need to do this through the Ministry of Agriculture, Education, Research, Innovation, the Prime Minister's Office. We all have to participate, and the change that we are seeing is that the private sector is coming very strongly into this debate, willing to participate because everybody is realizing the challenge and everybody is agreeing on the fact that we need to do it according to our Nordic values. And then I'm talking about that even though we as leaders have different political opinions, we share the values to ensure prosperity and welfare for everybody. And we need to fight climate change with these values as our guiding lights. So I think we can do more together. I think we can learn a lot from each other, even though circumstances are different in each country. And I think it also matters globally that the Nordic region presents a strong front. So it makes me a little more optimistic that we have signed this declaration today, because I think it matters to the world that the Nordic region is making this very clear statement here today.
Okay, thank you very much. And then Norway, please.
Let me start by joining the thanks, Juha, for your invitation and for the interesting meeting we've had. I think it also exemplified that we have a lot of interesting research and development going on in our different countries, with a little bit different focus in all countries that joined together can give us even better grasp on how to reach our targets on being carbon neutral in the future. I have seen exciting new things, and I see that we are using our comparative advantages, our different types of industries, in our development on targeting the CO2 emissions, which means that other countries also can learn from that. We are now meeting here just a little more than 6 weeks after the meeting in Katowice. It reaffirmed the commitment to a global effort after what we saw in and after Paris. I think we have reached a point of no return for climate policies and climate action, and we have now also the tools to step up action after Katowice. This is also a great possibility for the Nordics to continue and increase our cooperation. More ambitious targets are the only adequate response to the 1.5 degree report. We have just finalized negotiation. We are different parties. We have just finalized negotiations on the new platform for the enlarged Norwegian government, which also have increased our targets and also our targets both in the short term up to 2030, but also on the 2050 targets on our own emissions and our own ambitions. We will also, of course, report to the UN Secretary General in September on our targets, but I think it's good if the Nordic can work together on how we can achieve these. What we see from the 1.5 degree report is that the next decade will be decisive. We need to increase the ambitions, but we also need to increase our work to make sure that we are reaching those ambitions that we are putting forward. And I think that leading by example is a good way, meaning that we all have our different good areas that we can lead from. The Nordic countries have an international reputation for being able to change rapidly, to answer to international challenges, and we have the Nordic model that leads us also to make sure that we do changes in a social sustainable way. This is important also when we are in transition to a low emission society and a zero carbon society. That means that we have to work on all of the different incentives that we can. We in Norway work, of course, a lot on electrical cars, we a lot on the transport sector. We have reached quite good results on that. We are working very much on our maritime sector, which I know also Finland is doing, because we have a lot of joint companies also in this field that leads us to learn from each other and can develop also our international competitiveness and the security of jobs. Because I think one of the most important things political leaders also have to answer in the debate about climate is job security, development, and make sure that the changes we do to make sure that the environment isn't changing, that the climate isn't changes, doesn't lead to bigger obstacles and problems for people. So we have to look at how we secure jobs and how we deal with the environment at the same time.
Okay, thank you so much. And then last but not least, Sweden, please.
Thank you very much, Prime Ministers, Ministers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm delighted to be here today together with you colleagues. Sweden just got a new government, and I'm happy to be here representing, being not only the Minister of Climate, but also the Deputy Prime Minister, and my Prime Minister is a little bit busy at home now, arranging all the details of the new government. However, this government still prioritizes climate. This is we have agreed on the basis of 4 parties on very, very tough and ambitious policies for the next 3.5 years, with the aim of Sweden being one of the first fossil-free welfare states in the world. And I think I have some competition over here on who's going to be the first one. Together, the Nordic countries, in fact, constitutes the 11th biggest economy in the world. We're not insignificant when it comes to both being an economic market, but not least being leaders by example and showing the world that it's in fact possible to reduce emissions while keeping living standards high, even increasing our living standards. And we've shown that historically, and the world is looking at us. And I know that for a fact, already having been the climate minister of Sweden for a couple of years. And I know that our voice punches a lot above our weight. And of course, when the US is now leaving the Paris Agreement, and we have some turbulence within the European Union and where the UK is leaving, we need strong voices pushing the European Union to be a leader on climate. And I think what we, the Nordics, and also Iceland and Norway, is participating in climate policies by the European Union. We can really influence the European Union and the international processes significantly by showing leadership. And that is what we've done today by signing the declaration, but this is only the first step. So we're going to proceed by making an assessment how we as Nordic countries can cooperate to be able to really reach the goal of carbon neutrality. We express this a little bit differently between the countries. We have expressed our goal as setting the goal for net zero emissions by 2045. And we have some different years there. But what we agree upon is the absolute necessity to raise ambitions. Because what we know is that if the world delivers on the promises made in Paris, we're not going to stay below 1.5 degrees. We will have 3 degrees of global warming, 3 degrees. And what we have right now is 1 degree, a little bit more than 1 degree of global warming. And us, the Nordic countries, last summer experienced what that could mean for Scandinavia, for the Arctic region, with extreme heat waves, with lack of water and a threat to our food production. And so this is the reality now, and we're committed, and I'm really, really pleased and proud that we have agreed on this declaration today. And I think this is a fantastic leadership that Finland has shown also to bring us together ahead of the UN Secretary General's summit in September, and also in preparation of your own presidency of the European Union. That will be really good for us to continue working together. And the assessment that is proposed in the declaration on how we can together use our synergies, both when it comes to research, development, and business cooperation, and using our punch and our weight in international cooperation and in other circumstances, that is really going to mean something. So I'm very proud, and thank you so much for hosting this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ministers. Now it's time to take 1 or 2 questions all together before media has the possibility to do some one-to-one interviews with the ministers on their own languages. So who would like to propose questions? Please go ahead.
Hey, David McDougall from News Now Finland. I have 2 questions. First, for Prime Minister Sipilä. This week a survey showed that Finns are interested in action on climate change, but only when other people are taking the action. How do you get Finns to be more engaged in the process? And secondly, for Prime Minister Solberg, your country's invested a lot in green energy solutions, but it remains a major producer of crude oil. Can you see a time where Norway stops producing crude oil from the North Sea, or is that a financial red line that Norway is not willing to cross in the fight against climate change? Thank you.
Thank you. This is true. This is the latest poll, but in the latest polls also, climate change is number 4 in Finnish people thinking. Number 1 is unemployment rate, but number 4 is climate change. And I think that all the Finnish people are ready to do whatever is needed as a Finnish part of the actions against the climate change. We have a tradition to use bioenergy, biofuels, and we can learn a lot from the other Nordic countries. In Denmark there is wind energy. Time to time over 100% of the energy consumption is made by wind energy. Norway is the leading country of the electric cars. In Finland and Sweden we have biofuels, and we are used to use our forest a sustainable way. And in Iceland you are almost independent in energy. Only traffic is imported from other sources. So there is a lot we can do together, and I think that there is a full support from the Finnish people also.
Then I'll answer on the oil. There will be a stop in the production of oil eventually in Norway. First of all, I'd like to say that Norway is now a large producer of natural gas. Our oil development has gone downwards the last, I think, 18 years or something. So the largest part that we have been increasing the last year has been natural gas. Natural gas is a part of the intermediate solution for European stabilization of the European market, and of course also in a security part. You also have to say that having one more supplier of natural gas into Europe today is maybe a good balance on other issues. What we are focusing on is, of course, making sure that our oil and gas production has the lowest emission that they can have. That means that we are putting stronger regulations on where they are getting their power from. The last big exploration was now done by power from land hydropower to fuel that development. They are also investing into wind power, floating wind power, to see if they can use that for support in their production. So the production should have as small emission as possible. That's also why we both have a CO tax and the ETS system for the oil companies in Norway, one of the highest CO2 emissions taxations that there are. So in a way we are focusing on that. And then of course it will be development and the demand. If Norway had cut back on its oil and gas production, Europe would have a problem today, and of course it will be fueled by oil produced with more emissions than ours is. But we are looking at how we diversify our economy to make sure that we can have other steps, other bone or legs to stand on in the future.
Okay, thank you. I think we could take one short question if someone wants to pose one. Antonia.
Antonia Berg from the Finnish commercial TV. As you told here, the circumstances in different countries are pretty different from each other. So what are the same goals that you now have agreed on? What will we see, and how will you follow up that every country does it share? You can all answer.
Okay. So our common goals are described in the declaration. Though we have different conditions, we all share the target that we will be carbon neutral in future, and there will be different solutions, and we put different emphasis to different solutions. But one good example is that while we work together, good example is Nordic electricity market. Yesterday it was perhaps the coldest and darkest day during the winter. But when we count together how large share of CO2-free electricity there was in Nordic market, the share was 85 to 90%. renewables or nuclear together. So this is a good example that we have different strengths, but when we combine our efforts, the results are remarkable.
Can I just emphasize that the Katowice rulebook is the answer to all of this, because we all have to now report on the same rules. All countries do and are part of the Paris Agreement. And that means that it's more transferable that we are reaching our results.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it's time to close this press conference, and then you can continue with the separate interviews. Have a very, very nice weekend. Thank you, everyone.